Hello everybody! My husband and I just got back from an amazing trip to Japan. We were there for 17 days total and we were exploring the regions of Chûgoku and Shikoku. And in a previous video, just the one before this one, I shared with you the handmade pieces that I packed and that I wore during that trip. And in this video, I wanted to share a little bit more about this trip, especially the 7 different sewing shops that I found, and then the 3 crafting workshops that we participated in, and then the sewing books that I found as well. So let's get right to it. To start, we flew directly from Paris to Osaka, and that reminds me, if you're new here, hello, my name is Sarah. I'm originally from the US, but I moved to France in 2009, which is why we were flying from Paris, because that is where my husband and I live. I am a dual citizen now, and on this channel I mostly talk about sewing, but a little bit of embroidery and knitting when I dabble in them from time to time, and a little bit of what it's like to live in France, because that's what influences what I make and what I wear. So welcome, or bienvenue. So we flew directly to Osaka, and rather than staying in Osaka at first, we decided to go straight to Kyoto for 2 nights. Upon arriving at our hotel, I received my first order that I had pre-ordered back home. Misuyabari is a hand sewing needle company that has been making sewing needles for hundreds of years with time-old traditions, and they are known as being some of the best hand sewing needles in the world, and I can confirm I have been using them since I first bought them in 2019 when we first went to Japan in Kyoto, and they are the best sewing needles I have ever used, and I absolutely wanted to take advantage of going there this time to buy some more, because even though they do last a while, I was running out. And so I highly recommend, if you are going to Japan, to pre-order some too, because they used to have a physical shop. It used to be this little almost hidden secret shop in a magical little Japanese garden off of a big shopping street. I was able to go once in 2019 and it was just so lovely. But they closed in 2025 and now they only have an online shop and they only ship within Japan. Since I've learned that there are mail forwarding services to international locations in Japan, but I've never used them so I can't recommend any. So there might be possibilities of ordering from outside of Japan, but I wanted to take advantage and I contacted my hotel in advance and they accepted to receive this package for me, and it was a very small one anyway, and I ordered some sewing needles. So I purchased 4 different hand sewing needles, 2 of one of them, and they come in these really pretty little paper packages like this, and I'll have to use a translation tool to figure out which is which, but I have an idea. So I purchased some that are for very lightweight fabrics, so silk, and they let you pick out what kind of eye you want for your needles. So traditional Japanese needles have circular eyes so that they leave less of a mark, I think, when piercing silk, for silk kimono, for example. So you can choose between that or the grooved eye, which is the more traditional sort of Western eye that you see in most modern or contemporary sewing needles, hand sewing needles. And then I got 2 different ones that are for cotton, so more like a light to medium weight cotton. And then I got sashiko and embroidery needles because I figured that would be useful to have and last me a very long time. What's also really interesting about these needles is that you can pick what length you want. So I picked about a 4 centimeter length for mine because I like when they're a little bit longer, but you can pick smaller or longer, and so you can really personalize which needle you prefer to work with. And then I also treated myself to little thread snips because Japan is very good, or Japanese makers are very good at making very, very sharp tools. And so I wanted some Japanese thread snips, and they are tiny and very sharp, so I'll have to be very, very careful. But yeah, I'm happy I got that, and I encourage you to check out that shop if you can. So after a first evening of wandering around and then collapsing, we had 1 full day of exploring Kyoto and many things planned. So in the morning we went and visited the gardens of the Kyoto Castle, and then we headed to the Yamamoto Roketsu dyeing studio. So this is something that I found online, and it is a family-owned dyeing studio that practice Roketsu dyeing, which is basically wax-based indigo dyeing, which means that you paint on hot wax and then you dye in an indigo vat, and the fabric that is not painted becomes indigo blue. And I wanted to try it because in Kyoto there are a lot of fiber arts that are still alive, such as dyeing and weaving and kimono making, and so I wanted to try something, and I found this. We had the entire studio to ourselves. Nobody else was there, which was surprising because Kyoto was packed. The owner was very, very kind. Our teacher was very kind and patient and explained everything in English, and so first we picked out the designs that we wanted to make, and what kind of thing we wanted to make. So I picked a tote bag and my husband a handkerchief, and then we picked out the designs from many different designs that we could have picked. I picked a phoenix and my husband picked some Ghibli characters. And then at the desks there were light box tables where you place the design and then the fabric over it, and so you can see through the fabric and the design shows up. And there was hot wax in a heated pot in the middle of the table, and brushes, almost like traditional calligraphy brushes. And you would dip it in the hot wax and then paint where the design was, and it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. So the pressure you put on the brush makes the brush stroke thicker or not, but then you have to make sure that you have enough wax and then it's still hot, and so you have to keep dipping after every 20 centimeters or so of a brush stroke, and it was hard to get very precise lines, but I think I did okay. So this is my phoenix, and once the design was put on with hot wax, you go over it a second time, and then you go to the indigo vat. And we were able to stir the indigo vat ourselves, and so what happens is the indigo colors all of the parts of the fabric that you didn't put the wax on, and then our teacher then rinsed them to set the indigo, and then he put them in boiling hot water to boil off the wax. And so this is what remains, and depending on how you went over the second layer, you can see some of it's a little bit more transparent, some of it's a little bit more opaque, and so cool. It was just such a cool experience. And then also before we left, they had a few things for sale, including these weights. And this was the weights that we used to smooth out and keep the fabric and the design together on the lightbox desks. And I decided to buy one for myself, even though it was the beginning of the trip and it was heavy. I thought this would be great for smoothing out patterns and fabrics and keeping them in place for a pattern weight. It's got this bumpy edge on one side to make it adhere to the paper a little bit more or grab it a little bit more, so I'll have to try it and see if it's useful. But I highly recommend checking this place out. I will link it below if you're interested. They were very kind, and I have so much respect now for their skill because they had their artwork all over the studio and they were just such beautiful designs. They even had printing rollers hanging up, and how gorgeous. After the dyeing workshop, we headed back to our hotel, and we only had about an hour before we had to leave to a show because there was the Miyako Orori festival going on. It was the very tail end of the spring traditional Japanese dance and music festival that happens every spring in the Gion neighborhood. And there was a traditional Japanese dance and music show going on at a really historic old theater that I found and I booked. And so I only had about an hour, and instead of napping like my husband, I decided to run off to go fabric shopping because not far from our hotel was Nomura Tailor, about a 15-minute speed walk away, and I wanted to explore. So this is a really well-known Japanese fabric shop, and it has a few floors of really beautiful fabric. Unfortunately, it took me about 15 minutes to speed walk there, and it would take me 15 minutes to speed walk back, so I only had about a half an hour to browse, pick out the fabrics I wanted, wait in line to get it cut, and then pay. And so I didn't have a whole lot of time, but I found two really beautiful fabrics. The first fabric is this really gorgeous cotton. It is almost like an ikat. I think it's called kasuri in Japanese design or dyeing method. And along the selvage, it's written this in Japanese. I'm not sure if you can see that. And my Google Translate tells me that this is a thick kanai cotton, like an official kanai cotton maker and dyer, and that they were founded in, I think, 1856 or something like that. And so how cool that I found some traditionally made with artisanal techniques fabric with these different designs. I purchased 1.8 meters. I wanted 2, but they only had 1.8 left, so I purchased whatever they had left. And this fabric cost 1,980 Japanese yen per meter. And so for the whole thing, I spent about 19 euros, which is not bad. And I think I'll have to be careful because it is very narrow, like all of the cotton that I purchased in Japan. It's only about 1 meter wide, but I think I want to make a summer dress with this. And I've been looking at the Helen's Closet Reynolds dress because I think it has a really nice flat front to display this really beautiful cotton. And yeah, I think, that might be really nice. And then the second fabric that I purchased is this. This is also 100% cotton, but it feels like a gauze. So I'm not sure if it was ironed with starch or not, if when I wash it, it will become less stiff. But I think it would be really cool for a voluminous blouse. And it's got this really, really cool woven check to it, if you can see that. And so I'm thinking something that has a bit more structure, a blouse with a bit more structure. This one's also narrow, and I have 2 meters of this. It was 900 Japanese yen per meter, and so for a total for two of about 10 euros. And so I'm thinking maybe something like the Revel topper, or let's see, what did I note here? The seamwork Loretta blouse would also look really, really beautiful in this. And so, I can't wait. From Kyoto, we went to Hiroshima, and on our first day of exploring, I went to another little sewing shop that I had on my list of places to visit, and it was lovely. I didn't film here because I forgot that that's what I wanted to do, and also because it was mostly for yarn, and I didn't anticipate finding anything for myself, but I did. And so you'll just have to trust me when I say that this shop is lovely. They've got mostly yarn, accessories, and weaving, lots of weaving and crochet, but then some embroidery as well. And I found some Isegir yarn. In the end, I thought that I had gotten a really good deal on these, but then I checked prices here in Europe, and okay, so I didn't have to buy them in Japan. I didn't get that great of a price, but they were so lovely in their displays that I decided to invest right there, because there's something about seeing them in person. So I got 2 different of their alpaca 2 wools, so they're 50% alpaca and 50% wool, and I got 3 skeins of each. And then I also got a kit for the fin scarf by Isegir as well, with these 2 together. So this is the same alpaca 2, and then this is their silk mohair, which is 75% kid hook mohair and 25% silk. And the fin caught my attention because it's got this lace detail, and then it has this scalloped edge, which I find really, really elegant and nicer than a square edge. And so I wanted to try it, especially because all of the ingredients to make it are together. And then on our second day, we visited the Peace Museum. And I mentioned that because if you are in Hiroshima, I highly recommend going. It is a very difficult place to go to because it's haunting, but it's so important as well, I think. And so we spent some time there and then also in the garden, but unfortunately it was raining a lot when we were in Hiroshima and pretty cold, so we didn't spend a lot of time outside. And they were just preparing the flower festival. I think it's a yearly peace festival that they do in Hiroshima, so it was lovely to see them setting up all the flowers in the garden outside of the museum. But it was really well done. But yeah, those stories have stayed with me, and I think that's the point as well. And I highly recommend going if you can. So after we went to the museum, we were exploring some more, and we ended up in a neighborhood because I told my husband there was something I wanted to see. And we found a haberdashery and fabric shop that was at least 5 stories tall and really, really big. And so this shop was cool in that they had multiple stories of fabric and all of the crafting things. So any kind of craft that you wanted to do, you would find it there. They had doll making, beading, sashiko tools. I ended up not getting any fabric because even though they had some interesting fabric, a lot of them were more polyester blends and lower range in terms of quality. But I did end up picking up some thimbles because if you followed my video on making my very first leatherwork bag, I experienced a lot of hand pain because I didn't have the right tools. And so on this trip as well, I invested in a lot of thimbles, you will see. So I picked out these 2 leather thimbles to allow for some flexibility and grip as well as hardness to keep my fingers safe. And then I also purchased a little purse clasp because I was thinking of making a small change purse and switching out how I handled my wallet, but that's another tangent. And this was perfect. Those are the only things that I found at that store, but I highly recommend visiting it if you are looking for something very specific and you are in Hiroshima. It is called Shugeimaki, and the first shop, the yarn shop, is called Kinuya, and I will link both below if you would like to check them out. From Hiroshima, we headed to Yamaguchi, which is known as the Kyoto of the West, and there was no fabric shopping or anything that happened there. We mostly spent that time exploring, and then our hotel was in the Yuda Onsen neighborhood, and it had its own hot springs at the hotel, so we would explore during the day and then relax in the evenings. And then after Yamaguchi, we went to Matsue for 2 nights. And this is a city along the northern Seinen coast of Chûgoku, the region. And I loved the city. Even though we saw it in the rain and blustery weather, I found that it was a really interesting city with lots of cultural activities to participate in. And so after a first day of exploring, our second day we had a workshop planned that I found in advance. Through the Osewasen website, it is a cultural portal to all of the activities and workshops happening culturally in Matsue, and they indicate whether or not English is available, so it's very open to visitors. And I found a Mizuhiki workshop. Mizuhiki is the knotting of cords made of washi paper, and we learned how to make this raindrop shape with our teacher, who is a Mizuhiki artist. Her art and jewelry are sold in a shop right off of the Matsue castle, and she was showing some of her creations, and oh, they were just absolutely gorgeous, especially after we had been working on these raindrop pieces for a while and realized how very difficult it was because the difficulty is you have to keep the 3 cords together as you're bending them flat, and so the outside one needs to be a little bit longer, the inside one a little bit tighter, and it was really complicated. So I have all the more respect for this art. I saw it in a lot of stationery shops where cards and envelopes were sold, and so it was really cool to see how it was done. And our teacher even gave us some gifts. So she made this while we were working. Or this one is a flower. We both made keychain decorations. My husband decided to make his in the colors of the Japanese flag, and I decided to make mine in this pine green, silver, and white, because pine green is a symbol of Matsue because there are lots of pine trees. And she also explained that the raindrop symbol is good luck, even though it does rain quite a lot in Matsue. And so that was really cool, and I will link below the cultural portal or the website that links to all of these workshops. It's really cool, and it was a great little parentheses of culture and meeting a Japanese person who practices an art. It was in English, and so it was easy to follow, and it was so cool. So then our wanderings took us to a mall because it was getting very cold and we wanted to take refuge and also find some gifts for people back home. And I found a bookstore. So this is called Miraiya Shoten, which is a bookstore chain. It's a really large bookstore chain in Japan, so you can find it outside of Matsue as well. And they had all kinds of books. And I saw they had a large selection of nonfiction illustrated books, so I thought they must have sewing books here. And so I used my baby Japanese to ask a bookseller where these sewing books were, and I had to repeat myself a few times because I'm sure my pronunciation was a bit off. But he very kindly led me over to the sewing books, and oh, I was so proud of myself for being able to communicate, and I found some really beautiful books. The first one is this, and it is the new book of single color embroidery by Yumiko Higuchi, and it is lovely. So I don't embroider yet, but I love Yumiko Higuchi's work. I follow her on Instagram, and this book is for single color designs mostly, and I figured if there's anything that's going to motivate me to try embroidery, it's using a single thread but making really beautiful designs. I really love the contrast with fabric, and there's a lot of different projects that you can get to throughout the book that are just really lovely. And I wanted to pick up this copy in Japan because I'm not sure that this one will be translated into English or French, and so I knew that the only place I would find it is Japan, and I figured I can figure out the directions with the translation tool like Google Translate if I need it, because these are basic stitches and I'm sure I can find the tutorials elsewhere. So I picked that up. And then I was looking through the Japanese sewing books, and I really love the style, the graphic design, the way they're organized, because they are very step by step. But I find that a lot of Japanese clothes and garment sewing is a little bit too oversized and unisex for me, for my taste. I think it looks really beautiful on other people, but it's just not my thing. But I found that this one appealed to me. It's oversized and slouchy, but it has really lovely details like this cuff detail on this shirt, or I find this really wide neckline, for example, really beautiful. And so there are certain things that I really want to try out. And this sort of encapsulates as well Japanese style, so very neutral colors, very oversized, slouchy clothes, mostly solid colors and not very many patterns or designs. But I find it very calm, and I am excited to try some of these. From Matsue, we headed to Okayama, which is on the southern coast of the Chûgoku region. And from there, I really wanted to go to Kurashiki because Kurashiki is where Japanese denim is made, because when denim production was shipped overseas from the United States, Japanese entrepreneurs bought a lot of the looms that were no longer used in the US and brought them to Japan, and now a lot of really good quality denim is produced in Japan, and specifically in this region around Kurashiki, which is a city where you can find a lot of really good Japanese denim. But first we went to Kojima, which is not so far from Kurashiki, but further closer to the coastline, because I had booked us a jean making experience at the Betty Smith Jean Museum and Factory. This is a workshop that is only about an hour long, so you don't make your own jeans. That would take days. The jeans are already ready-made and all sewn up for you, but they don't have buttons or rivets or the leather patch that goes in the back. You pick those out yourself and add them on with industrial machines, which is what interested me. And also you get really, really good quality denim jeans, Japanese denim jeans. My husband and I decided to make both of us the premium jeans, or to add rivets and buttons to the premium jeans, because they are a selvage denim, and you can see the selvage detail in the seam allowance here, which is pretty cool. I've never had selvage denim before, and this isn't 100% cotton. It does have 3% polyurethane or elastane in it for some stretch, which means that it's not a traditional top high quality cotton selvage denim, but I don't mind. I think because my hips are typically 2 to 3 sizes larger than my waist, it helps with movement, and I still think it's a really, really good quality denim. And so I think it's really, really cool. And so I picked out rivets that would match the top stitching that's already on the jeans. So there's this copper color and then also a very yellowy gold color. So I picked those out. And then I also picked out the button to be this sewing machine. It says handmade, and I know that's a little bit cheating because this is not handmade. Someone else stitched this together. But I did put on the button and the rivets with industrial machines, and that was incredibly cool. It was so, so cool to be able to do that. Our teacher was very kind as well, and very happily explained it to us in detail, and was very patient. And she even, when we finished putting on the rivets and the buttons with the machines, she went to go sew on the leather patches, and I picked out this plain black leather patch because I wanted something subtle. And she sewed that on with an industrial sewing machine. But as she was sewing them on, I asked her, and she was hemming them too. She was hemming the jeans for us at the length that we wanted. I asked her if I could film it a little bit, and she said, "Oh yeah, come over, come watch." And oh, it was so cool to see the industrial machine as well. I've never seen one up close before. And it was just a really positive experience. I have a new pair of jeans that are really comfortable. As with most ready-to-wear jeans, because it fits my hips, it doesn't fit me at the waist. It gapes a lot. So I will have to add, either wear it with a belt or perhaps add some darts to the yoke here to make it fit better in the back. But I'm still really happy with these. They're very, very comfortable. They're looser than my closet core ginger jeans, and so they won't be as skin tight and difficult to move in. And to be honest, I really don't like making jeans, so I'm very happy that now I have a new pair of jeans. And also they had a really cool museum off of the side of the workshop devoted to the history of the company, and it started in about the 1980s. And it has all kinds of demonstrations, and they have old machines that you can go look at. It was just so, so cool. So I highly recommend that. I will link it below. And then after our Betty Smith jeans making experience, we headed to Kurashiki, which is about an hour away by bus. And it was the most lovely little town. It had a little canal through the center of it with lots of trees and people going by in boats, and lots of little shops and little artisanal shops as well, and ice cream to go get. So it's a lovely little city if you'd like to go visit it. I highly recommend it. And I was just browsing. I wasn't going to buy anything in particular because most of the denim shops, they do have a denim street, for example, in Kurashiki, if you want to buy ready-made denim clothes. But I already had my jeans and I was happy. But walking outside along a pedestrian shopping street, I saw there was a bin of pre-cut denim fabric, and I could not resist. There was a half off sign, 50% off, and I was drawn to it like a magnet. And I picked out 2 cuts of denim. The first one is this black cotton canvas. I actually thought it was denim when I picked it up, and it was only 1,000 yen, so I think that's about 5.5, 6 euros, but it's canvas and it's non-stretch, so I don't think I'll make clothes out of this. I'll have to figure out what to make with it because it is very tough. It would make for a great apron, but it's black, so it's not really my style, but I'm sure I could make something out of this. Something durable, something for gardening maybe. And I have 2 meters. It was a cut of 2 meters, and it's pretty wide, so I have plenty. So I'll have to figure out something to do with that. And then the second denim that I found is this really cool herringbone denim. It is 100% cotton, and it's got this herringbone design. Is that the right side? Who knows? They both look the same. But it looks really, really cool. I've never seen herringbone woven denim before. And if you've been watching this channel, you know that I am obsessed with herringbone textures. It does look a little bit yellow because I think the natural denim, undyed denim color is a little bit yellowish, kind of like wool. I'm not sure what I'm going to make with it. It is non-stretch, but I thought it was just too beautiful to pass up. And this one was another cut of 2 meters for 2,400 Japanese yen, which comes out to about 13 euros. So for me, a steal for 2 meters of quality Japanese denim. I'm not sure what I'll make with it, but let me know what you would make with it. I'm all ears. From Okayama, we headed to Matsuyama, which is in the Shikoku region, which is an island that is just below the Chûgoku region. And Matsuyama is a big bustling city with lots of cultural events and covered shopping streets and a castle and an onsen neighborhood, so natural hot springs, baths neighborhood, which is where we stayed in a traditional Japanese hotel with its own natural hot springs that we were able to visit every night. And most of the hotels we went to on this trip, apart from Kyoto, Osaka, and Hiroshima, were hot springs hotels. And so we got to explore during the day and then soak at night, and it was lovely. I highly recommend organizing your trip to Japan that way. It's amazing, especially for recuperating after a whole day of walking around. But in Matsuyama, we spent the first day visiting the city, so going to the castle and exploring the castle gardens after, and then I convinced my husband to make our way over to a shopping mall where on the 4th floor there was a big sewing shop called Craft Heart Tokai, which I think is a chain across Japan. At first I thought it was a very small shop because the entrance is a little bit small, but then as you go deeper in, there's more and more things to explore, and they had all of the crafts, all kinds of really great things, and what I loved is that their selection was really good quality. So the fabrics were really good quality, the books, the sashiko, the embroidery kits, and I bought a few things. So after our Mizuhiki experience, I wanted to stock up on Mizuhiki cords and bring some home with me, and so at this haberdashery I found lots and lots of colors, so I picked them up and brought them home so I can keep learning different Mizuhiki techniques and shapes to make. I also picked up some silicone thimbles, a white felt marking pen, sharp and slightly angled craft tweezers that are really, really hard to find here. I can find angled tweezers, but not really sharp ones. So to get nice points or to grab onto something like a thread that's very small. And so I invested in this as well. I bought 2 Clover measuring tools because I find that their measuring tools are just really, really useful. An embroidery kit for making a small handbag. And then I was looking through the books and I found this sewing book on how to make different kinds of bags. And not only do they propose really well designed tote bags, they have lots of organization on the inside and lining and lots of structural elements to make them hard wearing, but they had some really interesting designs as well. For example, I'm a little bit obsessed with this one. So this is a tote bag that you can transform into a square bag with some snaps and straps on the inside, and I thought that was just so clever. And so this whole thing is full of very clever bag designs, and so I thought it was exceptional and I bought it. And also it says, lesson book, easy to make and easy to arrange. So I figured it'd be easy for me to do even though I don't speak Japanese or read it. And then I picked up 2 cuts of this really sweet floral cotton. They are both about 100 centimeters by 50 centimeters, so very small cuts. But I got them for about 750 yen each, which is about 4 euros. And I figured there are a few friends of ours who've just had babies, and I'd like to make some baby bloomers or something like that, and these are really cute. I also found this really pretty cut of mimosa print fabric, so it's a linen and cotton blend. I think it's 85% cotton and 15% linen. And this one's also only about 50 centimeters by 100 centimeters, and it was 814 yen, and that comes out to about 450 euros. And so I'm not sure what I'll make with this, but I thought it was really, really pretty and good to have on hand for small projects. And then I found this. This is a pinstriped, so it's sort of like a soft blue-gray color against white, and it's in this 100% cotton. It's also narrow, and I have 2 meters of this. I forgot to note down how much I paid for this, but it wasn't a lot, and I find it just really, really beautiful. What I love about Japanese cotton is that they have slub to it, and it's light but opaque, and so soft and nice, and it's got a good bottom weight and drape, and it's not too smooth, and it's gonna make for a really, really lovely, I think, summer shirt or dress. I'm thinking maybe the Duke blouse by Wardrobe by Me. There's something about it and the sleeves that I really, really love. Or a Sew Over It Lottie dress like what I'm wearing now for a really light summer dress. I think this would be really, really pretty, and I reach for it all the time when it's hot like today, during heat waves like today, and I would wear it all the time, but yeah, I love this. On another one of our days exploring and heading back to our hotel in Matsuyama, we were heading through a covered shopping arcade, and I remembered that I had marked on my maps that there was another sewing shop that I wanted to go to, and it's called Yokota. And it was a very small, very packed shop, mostly for knitting and yarn. Lots of yarn and knitting pieces hanging from the ceiling, but they also had a really great crochet section and embroidery section and sashiko kit section. I mostly invested in tools here, so I bought a new pair of sewing snips by Tulip. It's a Japanese brand that I trust and love, and it comes with this little case as well. More thimbles, because I need to try them all to figure out which ones will work for me. I also got a pair of sharp straight crafting tweezers, so like the others but straight, and these are even sharper at the point, so I think it's mostly for sumamizaiku, which is a Japanese craft of folding fabric, small squares of fabric. I think it'll still be very, very useful. And also if I want to pursue learning sumamizaiku, I can now with my own tools. And then I also picked up 5 meters of this really, really beautiful cotton cording. And I've been thinking of playing with negative space in clothes, like adding lace or pulled thread details, and I thought that this was really, really pretty. And so no fabric bought there, but it was a really lovely little shop. I'll link it below as well. And that was it for all of the fabric shopping in Matsuyama, but it was a lovely city and I highly recommend going and visiting. From Matsuyama, we headed to Osaka for our very last day of our trip, and it was a bit sad, but we distracted ourselves with some last-minute shopping of all the things that we wanted to bring home with us. And one of those things was cooking knives. My husband really, really wanted to invest in some Japanese cooking knives, and so we headed over to Tower Knives, and as my husband was browsing, my eye caught on some sewing shears, and they had about 6, and I asked to try one of them and fell in love. So these are stainless steel because I didn't want to have to fuss around with carbon, and if you need to oil them, I didn't want to have to oil it all the time and risk getting oil on my fabric. They are deceptively light versus my Kai scissors that I have. Kai is also a Japanese sewing brand, and I love my Kai scissors. But I figured these are in a different ballpark and really, really high quality, and they make this really satisfying click sound. They're also much looser than I'm used to, but I was told that that's by design because I did ask them to tighten it for me, but then they told me, no, that's by design. Apparently it's the same with gardening shears in Japan. They're a little bit looser because you're meant to control the pressure or how the blades are close together with the base of your thumb this way. It's hard to show, but you can actually, with your thumb, apply a little bit more pressure and have it be a little bit sharper, or not sharper, but closer together. I'm thinking it's probably because when it's wider, it can cut thicker fabrics easier, but I haven't used it yet. I have been telling myself you're not allowed to use them until you finish your unfinished project, Sarah. But I've just finished that project, so I will be using these very soon. And I do feel like I'm cheating on my very favorite Kai scissors, but I can keep both. I think that this one will be really great for thick fabrics where my Kai scissors have a bit of a harder time, so coating fabrics or denim fabrics, and I'm really, really glad that I invested in some really high quality sewing shears. These cost me about 110 euros, and it was quite an investment, but I think that they will last me a lifetime. The very last sewing shop that I went to go visit was only about a 15-minute walk from our hotel, which was perhaps by design when I was planning on where we were going to stay. We were staying in Namba, and in that neighborhood there is Yuzawaya. I know they have different locations, but they do have one big one in Namba, and it was huge. I think it's a chain Japanese sewing store again, and so you can find it in different locations and not just where I was. But oh my goodness, it was the most extensive shop apart from the one in Hiroshima, but this one was newer. They had more contemporary kits and tools, and oh my gosh, they had beading, they had bag making, fabrics, sewing, Mizuhiki, embroidery, and it was just so fascinating to explore. My husband took one look and said, okay, I'm going downstairs to look at shoes, you have 45 minutes, and then we need to get out of here and get dinner. And I was like, all right, I can do it. And I explored, and I found some really great things, and now that I knew how much space I had left in my suitcase, I went a little crazy. So first I invested in some clover tube turners. I already have tube turners, but I figured that the clover ones might work a little bit better because I always struggle, and this one comes in 2 sizes. I also got some metal ring thimbles as the last thimbles that I bought during this trip because I will try them all. And then I invested in some small beading pliers. This is meant for jewelry making, but I figured it would be very useful in leather work because a lot of you suggested this kind of tool for working with leather and not experiencing so much hand pain like I did. And then I found this fabric. This is a linen and cotton blend with this mimosa print on it, and it is by Moment, which is a Japanese fabric brand. It's written on the selvedge somewhere. And it's very similar to the cut of fabric that I purchased, but it's a little bit less rough. It's a little bit more for dressmaking rather than bag making. And I'm not sure if this color suits me. You'll have to tell me. Can I wear it close to my face? But I love this fabric. I'm going through a yellow phase where I just want to wear more yellow, and I'm not sure if the beige background of the fabric works. They did have a light sort of white background in another fabric, but I felt like that was too contrasting, and I really liked the lower contrast of the beige background, sort of natural canvas background. But I love how this fabric is drapey and light, and it has a really great bottom weight, but it is cotton, and it's bouncy and opaque, but light, and I'm not sure what I'm going to make with this. I'm thinking maybe a swingy skirt or a summer dress. I have 3 meters, and it was about 1,650 yen per meter, which is about 9 euros per meter. And let me know what you would make out of this and whether or not it suits me. And then I found some really interesting cuts of fabric. So this is a cotton polyester blend jacquard that I found that's William Morris-esque. I'm not sure if it goes, does it go this way? And I have about 50 centimeters, and it's about 1 meter wide. So I have enough, ooh, look at the back. I have enough to make probably a bag or something out of this, but I love the colors. And then I found 2 cuts of this Indian block print fabric. This is 100% cotton for the outside and the lining, and then polyester on the inside, but it is pre-quilted. And how cool is that? It's so lovely. I decided on these 2, but they had a whole selection, and I noticed in Japan in general, at a lot of the fabric shops, there was a lot of Indian block print fabrics, and I know that that's coming into fashion a little bit more in sewing shops here or fabric shops here in France as well, and I'm so happy to see it because I find Indian block print so beautiful. And yeah, I've never seen pre-quilted fabric at such a great price. These 2 were both 858 yen, which is about 4.65 euros, so I snapped them up. I've been thinking of making book covers to put my books in when I put them in my bag because they get all beat up inside my tote bag. And I figured some kind of protective case for my books would be great, and this would be a great fabric to use for that. And then I also found these little cuts of cotton gauze. They are 100% cotton and also 50 centimeters, and they've got these little animals on them. So little lions and bears and cats. And they're so, so cute, and I figured some more baby clothes for my friends' babies with these would be lovely. And so if you're able to, I highly recommend checking out this shop. I think you can find it. I think they have 2 different locations in Osaka and maybe other locations nationwide. It was amazing. I am so lucky to have been able to go to Japan and explore, and something I love about Japanese sewing tools is how high quality they are, especially the cutting tools and the cottons. I would love to spend some more time browsing through and getting to know Japanese cotton because it seems to be that they have perfected the art of making really good quality cotton. And so if you are heading to Japan, I highly recommend you look for those 2 kinds of things, amongst others. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to like and subscribe. And if you would like to leave a tip to help to contribute to this channel, I have linked below my Ko-fi account, and there's also the YouTube Super Thanks option if you prefer that. All tips and contributions are really helpful to keep this channel going and to keep me able to invest my time in making this. Thank you so much for everyone who has contributed so far. It is really helpful. I will link below all of the shops I talked about and the workshop experiences and everything I can think of to help you find these shops if you are heading to the same places as me so that you can discover them too. I hope you are all doing well, and I will see you again here very soon. Bye-bye.